Hi everyone, and welcome to Wordsmiths. Today's topic is creating a character. My name is Jenna, and I'm going to share with you some approaches and tools to help you with character development. Let's do some brainstorming. Now, these aren't officially named approaches, just how I've categorized things, so this first one I'm calling the get to know you approach, the typical kinds of questions and things you'd find out about someone you just met. Some tools you can easily find online to help you gather an idea of your character or find some inspiration are character webs or profile sheets, trait lists, heart maps, and name lists. A heart map is basically a chart for what's closest to your heart, what's most important or loved. I also tend to read through lists of names to find a good one for who I have in mind, but you can go in the opposite direction and start with a name. To get more specific, here are some things you'll want to think about: age, likes and dislikes, interests, talents, skills, flaws, pet peeves, habits, and of course, favorites questions. It's engaging when a character has a few clear talents or skills and some things they're bad at. Those qualities give way to admiration and sympathy. Deciding a fatal flaw can be really fun. It's a part of the character's personality that leads to their downfall or any big failures. Habits can be good, bad, or quirky like any sort of compulsion or routine. Lastly, how do they speak? What are some of their common phrases or sayings? Do they use a certain vernacular or have an accent? Do they talk fast or slow, quiet, loud? How about the general sound of their voice? All of these can get you brainstorming about the vibe your character gives off. Next, I'm calling this the artistic approach. Draw them! Obviously, I do it all the time. Who cares if you think you're no good? It'll be fun. If you're too intimidated by the idea of drawing a person, stick figure or no, just play with color. Art lets out your inner child and gets your mind into creative gear. Color psychology is the theory of how colors can make us feel a certain way, so you can create something abstract and turn it into a color representation for a character, and play with all sorts of patterns. For more concrete details, you should consider what they look like. This includes physical features, build, piercings, dyed hair, tattoos, or scars, for example. Scars always have a story, you know. Also, you can consider what they wear, from the style to the textures. Clothing is a form of expression. How might it relate to their personality or mislead someone? First impressions aren't always right. Of course, you can get into what they like and don't like about how they look too, things that they can or can't change. You can also consider their body language and what expressions they make. Are they open or closed? Hunched over, straight posture? Do they stand crooked? What might be unique about how they smile or the way they glower? Emotions should lead you to possible situations that can cause those reactions. Just get your ideas flowing. Next up, the psychological approach. I minored in psychology, so I've gathered some helpful topics here for constructing a character's mindset and behavior. I love this stuff. Character development's my favorite. So there's the Myers-Briggs 16 personality types, which uses a scale of extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving. There's the nature versus nurture concept, so you can work on what your character has always been like and what they were subconsciously taught or picked up on and incorporated into their behavior. There are different learning types, defense mechanisms, or how they behave when feeling threatened emotionally, and attachment styles. How do they handle various types of intimacy, and why? Part of that comes from how their parents raised them. You can also look into communication styles. Deciding a fight or flight response is good too, especially if you want to write a lot of action. How does your character react in situations where they have to rely on instinct? Do those decisions end up doing good or making things a little bit worse? On the other side here, how do they express their emotions? How well do they hide them or lie? I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but if you can come up with a few specific events from their past that affected them, that's great for building character. Any experiences that change their behavior are important. Their personal views and beliefs are important too, from philosophical topics to government, romance, gender, trust, morals, spirituality, etc. Their moral system is a great one to delve into, particularly if your protagonist is more like an anti-hero or a villain. You can make great conflicts from these topics. People fight about them all the time in real life. It will help humanize them. No one is perfect or the same. On a related note, you have the social aspect. Friendships, family, and love interests are big. That's a lot of fun stuff to play with. Relationships within the family can especially affect your character. It's a person's first social connection. Next, you can develop what societal roles they have, which relates to career goals and community involvement. And of course, you don't have to be thinking real world. These topics are valid for fantasy worlds too. What's their education look like? What about their neighborhood or economic status, rich or poor? If you throw them into a social setting, how do they act? You'll see all sorts of people at a social gathering, from the entertainers to the ones who stay farther away from the crowd. You can take a step back and look at your protagonist from someone else's point of view too. The way people around them see and treat them could very well affect their view of who they are. That can affect how they act. This is another psychology concept, actually, called the looking glass self, where you base your opinion on yourself by the view that you think others have of you. So the last approach I have here is for story and conflict. Basically, you use your story idea or world to build your protagonist. The other methods I've talked about have focused closely on a character, so you can take what you've built for them and turn their life into a story. This way, you can start with the story, the kind of plot that you want, and develop a character who will catch our attention and let us experience it. So you have an idea for the plot. What would the character's goal be? How can you get to those moments you really want to write, like the betrayal of a trusted friend, a breakup, a heist, or a battle for freedom? Just as you have goals for the story, your characters have to have goals. That will lead you to figuring out why they have these desires, what they're willing to do, what they actually do, and the obstacles that the plot forces upon them. How will your character handle those obstacles, and what does that say about them? They could be a fighter, a mediator, a nonviolent person, a planner, innovator, perfectionist, impulsive, the kind of person who just wings everything. You should be able to find ways to make your plot challenge your character internally. Remember, contrast is good. It creates conflict. For a few examples, a gentle protagonist who's sent to jail for accidentally aiding and abetting in a crime. Or someone who ends up taking care of a child even though they never wanted kids. Or someone who doesn't believe in love until they start to connect with another special character. Whatever you want your plot to be like, develop someone who will struggle with it. Another tool I want to mention, which you've probably seen before, is the character alignment map. This consists of morals and nature, I'd say. You've got lawful, neutral, and chaotic. Then for nature, good, neutral, and evil. A lawful character follows principles. Neutral behaves according to needs, so they can kind of flip-flop. And chaotic is impulsive. That will give you all kinds of combinations for interesting characters, and especially how they'll interact with each other. You might be thinking, why go through all these details? I just need a general character. No, general is bad. It's true not everything will make it into the story. However, the more you know your characters, the more depth your writing will reflect. Your audience will be able to feel it too. That gives us the sense that your fictional character could exist in real life, and that's the goal. It's perfectly okay to figure out your characters as you write, but considering these details, big and small, can really help. Don't discount the value in researching either. There are plenty of subjects that you can look into or ask people about to help make your character more believable. Like if you're writing someone who's in foster care, look up people's stories. If your main character is a firefighter, look into the mechanics of the job and how people handle it. Overall, believability is what you're aiming for by spending time developing them. We don't just read to experience awesome adventures. We want to feel connected to someone, even if they're fictional. And with that, it's time for prompts. The first one I have, create a character who is the complete opposite of you, the kind of person you want to be, or someone with traits you admire and one or two that you hate. Second, find a character web online to fill out, whether it's your character or a favorite from somewhere else. Third, write a character study. By definition, this is a work of fiction in which the delineation of the central character's personality is more important than the plot. This can be like a glimpse of a story. It doesn't have to be a full arc, maybe just a scene, or something else to get into the character's psyche. For examples, a letter to another character, a diary entry, the character speaking to a camera, or someone else describing them and their life. The goal is to cover the major information you would need to know: their personality, their troubles, their social life, their passions and goals. That's all today. I hope you enjoy and feel inspired to create some content. Until next time, keep reading and stay inspired.